All right, everybody. Welcome back to episode 2 of Two Bites with John Dell and Chris Bigler. John, it's been a little bit since we recorded episode 1. I think about a month and a half or so. So just a quick second to check in. How you been doing? What's been going on with the business? And where are we at after a month or so hiatus?
Yeah, I that's time really flies. I think things have been busy, which is great. I think, as business owners, we always like to have things busy and in the pipe, but I think it's, you know, especially since this is early in the year for us when we're recording this, there's a lot of transitions happening, a lot of year-over-year switchovers in IT that we're pretty used to. And also, I love this time of the year because there's just nothing but excitement. We do a big industry meeting that we go to, and it's like there's nothing going on. And you go to these meetings and everybody's like, here's what we want to do this year. And you just get so excited and jacked up. And it's like, yeah, let's
Yeah.
do some cool stuff. And so there's a lot of excitement, a lot of planning. We're in a place where we're finishing off those years changeovers and really looking at our yearly maintenance plans and about some of these new projects and some new technologies that we've been working through and getting certifications in and how we can better leverage them. So, in early year, it's all opportunity and I love it.
Right.
How about you? What have you been up to?
Uh, I mean, it's been a busy last couple months for us as well, kind of as you spoke to. I think that all of us like to make our New Year's resolutions, but then they probably finally come to fruition around February when we're actually excited about them again. And so,
Yeah.
just finished up a full company move for my previous company, Scott's Dental Supply. So they moved across town, so we had to move all the servers, all the systems, get new integrations, new
Wow.
networking set up, and so it was a full tilt month of February, but it's been good. Looking at some new prospective clients and just trying to figure out how we can grow this thing. Like you said, the rest of the year is all filled with opportunity. So yeah,
Yeah.
that's a little bit of what we've been up to.
Whew. Big job, man. That's
Yeah,
makes what we're
it
going to
was a
talk
fun
about
one.
today, even just simpler. I mean, today I think we're focusing on more day-to-day stuff, but some of that big stuff
Hmm.
is tough. So I'm glad you got that taken care of.
Yeah, yeah, thanks. And I think those big ticket things are really hard without the small stuff that we're going to talk about today. So
True.
I know you're talking about calendar polling, so thinking about
Hmm.
scheduling remote meetings and all that kind of stuff without any tools like calendar polling, and I'll be talking about Microsoft Loop, which is kind of a knowledge based system that Microsoft's working on. But those big ticket projects are really hard without the day to day operations and tools that we can use. So John, do you want to jump in
Yeah.
a little bit to why you feel so strongly about calendar polling and how Microsoft
Mm.
leverages that?
Definitely. I think this is really important. It's a good point that, we have big tasks, we have small tasks, but when it comes to productivity and productivity tools, there are a million of them. And they're I don't want to say a dime a dozen, it's just they're everywhere. It's one of the great
Mhm.
benefits of us growing in technology. And in this day and age where everyone's looking at productivity, how can we do this better? So I think that's great. And if there was any theme for our conversation today, it's really about, productivity enhancers that might be here. You might have instant access to it for free and you may not be using it, and it's as simple as that. So with mine specifically, with calendar polling, one of those silly things, it's just a total game changer, when you're talking about uh, hosting meetings and finding appropriate times for these meetings. We've all had this challenge before. You've got to have a meeting and you've got to have three, four, five people or more, and it's like, what date works for you? And you're hard copying and looking at your calendar and copying in this dates and these times, and they're sort of redlining them in their responses and see below. It's like, oh, it's a nightmare. And I had no idea that, Microsoft, again, they're really good at just sneakily just deploying these things. I couldn't even tell you
Yeah,
when this came out, but I can tell you how old I was. I was this
yeah,
many days old, when I figured it out. And I started leveraging it, and it's so much nicer. So what this allows you to do in a nutshell is just, basically send out a poll with an email, and it's embedded in the email. And you say, hey, here's some times I'm available, and people can vote on the times they may be available. And then as soon as it all wraps up, Microsoft will actually schedule a Teams meeting automatically for you at the conclusion of when everyone's voted, and it finds an appropriate time. So it's totally hands off, and it's really just a brilliant solution for productivity and some of those little inane details of our daily work life. So I love that. And then, Microsoft Loop, which Chris is what you're talking about, that's kind
yep.
of an exciting product that's probably in its infancy right now with Microsoft.
Absolutely. I think infancy is probably the correct categorization there. I think they've really caught on to some of the key market players in the knowledge based space, is how you'll hear us commonly refer to that. I think Notion is a big one there, but then they also have product management tools that they're chasing a bit as well, which most of you will recognize names like Asana um, or ClickUp are two very popular ones. But I think Microsoft's doing its best to really create a all-in-one solution, and I think they really excel at allowing you to reference this information wherever you want to work. I think
Mm.
that's the one killer feature that Microsoft Loop has going for it. And they've recently announced integrations with Microsoft Planner as well as To Do, Microsoft To Do, a little task list app that they also have. So in the future, I can see them kind of rolling all of these into Loop and offering a more cohesive product. But I'll just jump into a quick screen share here
Hmm.
and show off kind of what Loop does at large. So got a browser here, and then we'll just go into Microsoft Loop. So this is their homepage. This is kind of how they like to market it to you. So think, plan, and create together. So the key thing with all these knowledge based tools or knowledge hubs coming out are really to get away from segmented documents and create one space where all of your information lives and you can interact with it in a collaborative way. And it can take on the forms that maybe you would use Excel for and Word for all in one space. So you have tables, you have to do lists, you have um, word processing, you have markup tools, and all that kind of stuff. So we'll just scroll through a little bit here. They also, again, are heavily pushing Copilot and Loop, and I think Microsoft's really well positioned here. Um, in the knowledge hub space to leverage AI. Because how I think about this going in the future is you're really kind of creating a lot of these one off pages. And we'll jump into kind of how those look here in a little bit. But then you're most likely going to reference an AI tool to say, hey, where did I reference this? Can you pull it up and show it to me? Or can you pull
Hmm.
all the instances where we've discussed this project before? And it will summarize and consolidate that information for you so you don't have to go read through 4 different documents leading up to the final approval of a project and that sort of thing. So I think that's kind of the philosophical switch and how Microsoft's really looking to leverage some of these. And then again, their killer feature is reference this and work on it where you want to work on it. So they do what is called components, where you can create a component out of anything in a loop page and then paste it into any other 365 tool. So that's To Do, that's Outlook, that's Planner. And then those become live collaborative spaces within whatever app you're working on to reference a task, to reference a document, and all that kind of stuff. So we'll just go back up to the top here. We'll go ahead and get started. So I've created a 2 bytes test space that we'll go ahead and pop into. So again, I think probably where most companies and teams are going to want to start is just general meeting notes. With these knowledge hubs, I think they're super overwhelming from the get go because it requires a certain infrastructure setup to start. Um, so I would recommend just, hey, get your meeting notes in here first and
Hmm.
see how that interacts, how that operates. But then as you feel more comfortable with the tools, you can slowly start to push more of your company documentation. Maybe you build a company wiki out of this, where now when you're onboarding a new employee, they get access to Loop and they have all the documentation they need to go ahead and get started. I think that's kind of the end goal with a lot of these. And so you'll see here, I've created a meeting notes and you can use the sidebar to reference all the meeting plans under it. So this is just a general topic or template that I've placed in here, but you can see you have page title, you have certain headers, you have emoji use, you have some different tables. You also have task view that you can
Hmm.
change between a table and a board view. Um, and then you can also go ahead and reference these in Microsoft Planner as well. But what we'll go ahead and do here is we'll jump into the first 5. So this was kind of a breakdown of how I've structured our outline for the first 2 episodes of the podcast. And so the first 5 here is the page title, but then we have episodes. And what I've done here, if I've is I've gone into episode 1 and I've created a component for what is being placed up here. So if I start typing, let's say, hello world, I can go back in here now and you'll see hello world is there. And where this gets really fun is I'll make an example here with some of the tasks from the meeting notes that we created. And I'll create that task here. And now that that task is created, I'll go ahead and copy it into what is called a component. And then I'll create a new mail in Outlook. And let's say I'll send this to you, John, but I'm just going to paste that there. So now I have a working component of what's in my task, but I can see it in Outlook. So this makes it really user friendly from the get-go, to where maybe you have an executive that, that just isn't going to jump into the new tool right away. Or maybe you have a team member that's like, yeah, I just like to work in my email. I don't like to use all these different apps and that kind of thing. So now that I've sent that person that component, you can see it shows live collaboration over there. So I can just type, set up first podcast, and you'll see it live come over to this component now. And this will live, whether it's in Word, whether it's in Outlook, like I mentioned, any 365 app. And I think this is where Microsoft's really strongly leveraged with their ecosystem to allow users to work where they want to work. And that's what I've seen as a roadblock for a lot of these Knowledge Hub applications is, okay, well, I got to get signed up and then I got to learn the infrastructure. How do these apps work? How do I make them most efficient? How do I structure the layout? And how do we choose to organize these? Because I think a lot of them use a Canvas style or a very blank Canvas approach. So that gives you, the user, a lot of control on how you want to set this up. But that also creates a lot of overwhelming scenarios when multiple team members want to view things different ways. And so I think this is, like I mentioned, just a really quick example about how Microsoft Loop is starting to get there. But John, as you mentioned, very much in the infancy of what they're trying to accomplish and what they want to do. But yeah, I think using it in Planner or using it in any 365 app is just such a strong tool and entry point for a lot of how these apps should operate, and breaks down a lot of the entry points. So,
oh yeah, I think there's just the interactivity, and I think you're right. Everybody looks for how can I do the most without having to bump in and out of different systems. The more systems you have, the less adoption you're going to have. That's a
right.
fact. We've done it enough. And it's not just, certain elements of teams or sales teams. Everybody is resistant because everybody likes to work their own way. What I love about these new tools is they are so flexible, and when they're integrated and you can move this data. So for example, one of the things that I think Loop is really incredible about is whatever I needed to do, because we've used other tools in the past for project planning, for communication. We've got a lot of recurring tasks in what we do. So every month we've got to sort of refresh this whole checklist of items that have to be done. And we have team collaboration because we have multiple analysts that support certain clients with large monthly tasks. And so certain tasks will have to get checked off by different people. And we've had issues with sort of mirroring these. If we're using Trello, do we have to mirror these cards, or do we have to get a paid service to do that? It's really difficult to have everybody working on a single system of truth. And I love where they're going with that. What I wish they'd speed up on is some of the external collaboration, because, and correct me if I'm wrong, Chris, but when we were originally looking into this a little bit deeper, because it was a new product for me, is you couldn't really collaborate with outside people yet, outside of your own Office 365 ecosystem. So that's something I look forward to work with my customers on, some of our shared checklists, some of our shared knowledge bases. That would be something that would, I think, close the gap even more. But it's really absolutely the way things need to move for us to move and work productively.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that external access is always a tricky one, right? Especially for Microsoft from a business perspective, is do we want to allow people to use our tool outside of the ecosystem, or do we want another 365 subscriber? And so my hunch is that they'll probably keep it within the walled garden, but well, hopefully for all of our sake, it opens up a little bit, because I think it does a lot of the early things very well, and
Hmm.
has a really strong start compared to some of the other tools that maybe started in one area really well, but then felt forced to adopt other features. And then that's really not their wheelhouse. And now their product is a bit
Yeah.
more convoluted. I think Microsoft has done a good job of bringing it all together, building an initial cohesive product, and then allowing the 365 subscribers to really leverage that in strong ways. But yeah, TBD still on the the shared access.
Well, if they
So
work it like Teams, Teams has come such a long way where, we
true.
work with our customers on Teams because they're part of their own Office 365 environments. True
Yeah.
external users, that's obviously a different story. And I get there's going to be
Mhm.
challenges there, but, a huge chunk of the world is operating on Office 365. And again, looking
Yep.
at this as, hey, we're just business people working with our clients and they're working with us and we've got the same systems and it's in their teams and it's in our teams. It's not like they have to have a license to ours. It's absolutely wonderful. And so I think this is great.
Mhm.
And I'm really excited to see what Microsoft Loop has to offer here in the coming months. But I think we're looking at a full conversion over to that from about two other tools that we need and one that we need
Mm.
and haven't implemented yet. And I think Loop,
Yeah.
is very close to filling all three of those needs.
That's awesome. Yeah. Do you mind me
Yeah.
asking what you guys use or what you're looking to consolidate from?
Not at all. Sorry, I guess I should be a little more open, right, with my life. No, so currently we use Trello for our project
Mhm.
management in a sense in how we use it. And
Mhm.
then also we did experiment with Microsoft Planner and I liked it, but again, we had an
Mhm.
issue with really being able to share tasks and how we sort of organize our
Yeah.
ecosystems by client buckets. So that is one of the tools, and Confluence for our knowledge base, which I think is a
Okay.
great tool. But again, we do a lot
Mhm.
of that internal wikis because we've got a lot of
Yep.
processes that vary by customers. So we really document heavy. So I'm thinking that that's something that'll really, really benefit us in the long term, just to kind of
Yeah.
keep these all in the same spot. And again, as an Office 365 subscriber, this is all included in my package. And I will tell you that
Right.
when you get a team full of people, that matters. I mean, it's a
Mhm.
line item that you'd be kind of, I guess, silly not to consider. And again, I think
Yep.
Trello is an amazing tool. This is not a referendum on that. I just think that Microsoft's really, they've got a good place here where it fits in nicely with what we're already doing.
Yeah, absolutely. I think value is king, right? Where,
Hmm.
like you mentioned, once you start growing the team and I got to pay for two, three, five, 10
Sure.
users on this, that price exponentially jumps very quickly. And
Yeah,
so the ability to just roll that in and no additional cost with the 365 subscription is so valuable. So it definitely
totally.
makes a lot of sense. Um,
Yeah. Well, that's great. I think that's exciting. Now I'm going to go
yeah.
to, we'll jump into calendar polls if that's good with you. And I think
Yeah.
this should be very quick and I'll
Hmm.
just use a very simple example. But again, the challenge here we can all relate to. You've got to get multiple people together. And the question is, how do I
Hmm.
do that in a time that works for everybody? So
Yeah.
we're going to go ahead and use a quick example. I've got two emails here up on my own. And let's share this screen now. Okay. So I've got my user here. This is my email inbox, and essentially I've got to organize a meeting. That's up to me right now and my job. So I got to send an email out, and let's just say I even have to do it with one person just for the sake of argument. So I'm going to shoot an email, and I'm going to get this meeting kicked off, and I'm going to send this to myself, obviously, and whatever my own email address is. Here I am. Okay, cool. So I'm going to say I need to meeting regarding uh, Oxford, comma. Okay, this is going to be an important meeting. I'm just going to paste in my quick message here to John. I say, I've got to arrange a meeting for you. I know this meeting has to be on Friday because whatever constraints we have, but I really want to discuss the merits of the Oxford comma. Can you please pick a good date and time for my calendar poll below to discuss? So this is my little message, and you're saying, what's a calendar poll, and how would you normally approach this? Well, you probably bake in some times that you thought were good for you. But what we're going to do here is in the Microsoft Office or Microsoft Outlook, and I'm using the Office 365 version, so this is online. I'm not even going to look at my calendar. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go up here to these three ellipses under more options in the editor. So it's kind of hard to find and not fully out there. But if you go here, and I can actually insert what's called a scheduling poll. I'm going to click on that, and you're going to see immediately I get this little side panel here, and it's going to give me all sorts of information. So what this is doing is this is actually synced up to my own calendar, and it's looking at, by default, my available dates. And so I'm going to skip real quickly on this date. I'm going to skip over to Friday, which is on the 8th, okay? And you can see here that I've got availability at 8, 10, 11, and then I have this whole gap here where I'm not available again till 2. Again, if we skip over to our calendar, you can see my nice calendar. I've got an event here. I'm actually having brunch with Neil Young on that day, so I can't do that. Obviously, I'm not going to miss that. But the nice thing is, calendar poll's already taken into consideration that I'm not available. You can certainly overwrite that if you just want to look at all available times of the day. But this is a really nice way of just clearing out all the chaff. And you can say, all right, so I can meet at 8 a.m., I can meet at 11 a.m., and I can meet at 2 p.m. And so those are going to be the options. Now, you can select multiple days, right? I can go on to Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, select other dates, as many as you want. But obviously, with anything, you want to kind of limit those choices, I think. So I'm going to stick to these 3 choices because we've got to meet on Friday. And I'm just going to hit next. It's going to give me some additional examples, options. In this case, I'm going to make sure this is a Teams meeting, so it's going to be a virtual meeting. And I'm just going to hit create poll. And you're going to see what it does in my email is now it just embeds this nice little sort of user interface. It says, hey, I want to have a 30-minute duration. You've got 3 time options, and I'm going to ask John to go ahead and vote on this. So I'm going to go ahead and send this out, and that's going to be in. And now on my other screen, which I'm going to drag over here, I just got an email come through. And I'm going to go ahead and open up this email, and I'm going to bring it over to this screen so you can see. So this is now a different user. This is my John, right? This came to me. And this is what the email looked like, just like we expected. But now I'm going to go ahead and vote on this. And the only bummer about this is when you do vote, it pulls it up on a different screen. So it's going to open up a new window. But now it's going to say find time voting page. And this is really cool because this actually gives you, I think Microsoft went a little above and beyond on this, where they're going to show me my available dates and times where reporting users free, right? So John's going to pick, and I've actually got 3 options. Instead of just saying yes or no, I can actually set a preferred time. So there's a difference between yes, I can make that meeting, and yes, that's the best time for me by far. And that's an important distinction, especially if you want to have somebody's full attention. So in this case, I'm going to say I prefer this meeting. I can do 8. I really would prefer to do 8. I can do 11, but I can't do 2. So I'm just going to go ahead and mark my choices here. And you don't have to select all. You can just select the ones that matter for you, but it's certainly beneficial there. And I'm going to cast my vote. It's going to say vote submitted, and that's going to be great. So now when I'm John, I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to be done. But you'll see here, now I'm in my reporting user, and you're going to see I've got a couple of different things that have just happened instantaneously. Number one, it's going to tell me when I've got a vote. And this is important when you're sending this out to more than one person, right? You're going to get a notification every time somebody votes on a time, and you can kind of track how things are going. But then once all the people who are invited or who are on that email, because those are actually your invitees, right? Anybody on that email with the poll, once everybody has voted, you get an email that says your poll has reached consensus. The meeting has been scheduled and an invite was sent to all attendees. Now, this is kind of, again, where it gets into the game-changing mode. I didn't just find a time that worked for everybody, but you can see here that it went ahead and scheduled the time that was the best time, right? It scheduled 8 o'clock, which was John's preferred time. It went ahead and automatically put it, if we jump back to my calendar here, you can see that now I've got 2 meetings on Friday, and I've got this 8 o'clock meeting, and I'm the owner of this meeting. And if you double click into this meeting, you'll see it's already set up as a Teams meeting, okay? So this is already set up on my calendar. If I go back to John's user, you will see, and I'm going to open this email up here. Give me just one sec. So now this is John's calendar. I've got my email invite automatically, and I'll say, yep, I'll go ahead and attend this meeting. And now on John's calendar, it's automatically set. So as a user trying to coordinate a meeting, you've sent one email, picked some times that were already available, and then everybody else did the rest, and then Microsoft went ahead and scheduled that meeting for you. So it's a really straightforward productivity tool, but again, it's a part of Office 365. Super easy to use. I've used this with external users that are using Gmail or Yahoo Mail, all sorts of other things, and I've never had an issue with it. So the only thing I will say that is something you'll want to watch out for is if you give, again, too many times, what the system will do is it'll sort of put a loose block on your calendar for all of those available times, and it'll just say hold, because you've told people you're available. So if you've done 8 different potential times, your calendar is going to have sort of a loose block on those date and times until a consensus is met. So just be careful
Mm.
about that. But otherwise, I think it's a very, very straightforward tool. And I really, really have gotten great responses from my customers and from even our internal team on scheduling these meetings.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the key thing there too is the multi-user interaction, right? Because
Hmm.
I think you have tools like Calendly, or I've used Cron Calendar for a long time as well, that has some share availability features, but that's really only one link to select one time for one
Yeah.
person to meet with you. And when you need to coordinate with 3, 4, 5 team members, or maybe a couple different people from a couple different companies, then it's like, okay, well, who's going to click that link and schedule that meeting? And in this environment, it's much easier to just go in, put your votes in, and then Microsoft handles the rest for you. So
Hmm.
yeah, it absolutely is a game changer and a lifesaver. After you've gotten started using it, you're like, God, how did I schedule meetings all those years? And you end
Oh,
up,
totally.
yeah. So
Yeah, it's a silly thing. It's like getting a new utensil that you use for cooking. It's like, how did I
yeah.
live without being able to, automatically pit my mangoes or whatever? Or we have like an apple core, right, where you just slam the
Mhm.
thing down and it cuts the apple into slices and stitches the core. And it's like I got 3 kids. Like this was a game changer,
Yeah.
but
I'm
it
saving
doesn't
10
have to
minutes a
be
day.
so sexy. It just has to be useful, right? That's it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
So.
John, thanks so much for hopping on again today. I'm hoping that the users will find quite a bit of value out of, whether it's just an introduction to Microsoft Loop, or maybe start utilizing the scheduler, or
Mhm.
the gosh, what is it called? The calendar poll.
Calendar poll.
Thank you. Yes.
Yeah.
For their meeting scheduling services, I mean, a lot of time can be saved, and like you just alluded to, 10 minutes a day is a lot of time throughout the year for all of us running around with crazy schedules. So,
Yeah.
appreciate you hopping on again, and as always, it's been a pleasure. And we'll probably shoot episode 3 here coming up, and see if we can't decrease that month and a half time frame in between next one. So,
Yeah, and I would encourage anybody, where we'd love to hear your feedback on some of these tools. If you do use
yeah.
them, or if you've used them, you've got good or negative feedback, put them in the
Mhm.
comments. I think it'd be great to hear, and we can certainly address them. And then if there's other
Yeah.
tools that you'd like us to assess, I mean, let us know. We'd be happy to give you our 2 cents if we're familiar, and if we're not, we'll look into it
Mhm.
and see what we can find. So I look forward to some interaction, and yeah, we'll make it less than a month and a half. I think that'll be good. And thanks again for hosting this, and
Yeah.
I'm glad to be a part of it.